Welcome back to another episode of Emotional Nightmares. I am your host. My name is Tyler. And on today's episode, we're going to continue into the theme of recovery. I know we've been touching a lot on mental health and spirituality, and we're going to combine all of that. We have a special guest with us here today, somebody I reached out to. I absolutely love their organization, their MC. But I'll let him explain all that stuff to you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and have you introduce yourself for a minute to the people.
Right on. My name is Clayton. Many people in my area know me as Coach, and I'm a National Sergeant at Arms with Sober Souls Motorcycle Club. Man in recovery. I've been clean coming up on 17 years. I know no fucking fronts. But 9/11 will be 18 years for me.
Nice.
And sober for about 12 and a half. So I claim clean and sober 12 and a half years.
Nice. Well, how'd you do that?
Man. It's a long fucking story.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Right on. So, initially, man, well, let me tell you that, at the end of my use, it was, I'm a kind of I wouldn't say a child, but a child of the, early 2000s opioid epidemic, the beginning of that.
The Oxycontin days.
Yeah. And then the Oxycontin into like fentanyl suckers and then patches.
In the microwave. I remember them days.
Yep. So, my use started, I'm not kind of like, I don't know. Little bit of weed around 12, 13, I think, like most of us. And then it kind of, stayed that way through high school, weed and alcohol, partying with my friends. I'm out in Colorado, not really Denver metro, kind of northern Colorado-ish area. So, when I was growing up, it was all farm communities and shit around us. So, there was a different kind of dereliction that we could pull off, we could have big bonfire parties and shit in high school. And it was like, that was the thing to do. And we didn't really have to deal with the cops like fucking kids these days. So
now if they just sneeze, the cops are there.
Yeah, man, like these kids they don't even get the opportunity to become a fucking derelict piece of shit fucking drug addict like I did. These poor kids. They end up catching charges, at 17. Or 16 or something. They don't even get the opportunity to not be in the justice system these days, But yeah, it was kind of that, and then, alcohol mostly through high school, some weed and shit. And then I graduated high school. I moved up to Alaska to do some fishing and shit. And when we went up there, we planned on being there 6, 8, 9 months. A friend of mine and his father, we all went up there together, like literally like 2 days after after our high school graduation. And his father was a pretty solid, ungentlemanly drunk. So he packed fucking, I don't know, 8 or 10 cases of handles of Jim Beam to take up, because we're gonna be living on a dry island.
Right.
So the goal was just stay up there till we ran out of whiskey, I guess. Anyway, we ended up coming back at about 5 months in because, we ran out of whiskey. So that's kind of where, like, the heavy drinking started, was in Alaska, man. Came back from there, and, that friend of mine, his sister, introduced us to, like, this white powdery, flaky substance that she called cocaine. So I'm still shit at that time. I turned 17 in Alaska, or 18 in Alaska. So I graduated at 17, turned 18 in Alaska, and I was 18 in a few months when she hit me with the cocaine, and it was good fucking cocaine back then, man. Coming from a good source for sure. And it wasn't long that she came and was like, "Hey, I found something even better. You can drink all night long if you want, and stay sober."
Yeah, right.
So that was my introduction to crank, man, to speed. And back then it was some green gacky shit. And that kind of expanded to a place where I met the right people, and I ended up hooking up with a guy who's still actually to this day one of my really good friends. And he's clean and sober, lives over on the western slope of Colorado, and he taught me how to like make some really good lab grade fucking crystal meth, man. So that's where I spent the next I don't know, 8 years or so.
So at what point? So we're going through this, right? So you're my favorite question to ask everybody is, you're going through all this. You're going now. You found meth, right? So once you found meth, like I know them nightmares. That's where this picture comes from. The shadow people that are out there. You're running around. You're not eating. You're not sleeping. You're doing all this goofy shit. At what point do you say to yourself, "Shit, something needs to change. I gotta do something different"?
Man, so for me, so I'll tell you, my youngest kid was born in October of 2003. And so for me, it was 9/11 of '07, when I did that. So, my kid was almost 4 years old. My youngest kid was almost 4 years old. And, there's a little bit of something in between there. A little bit less than a year after my kid was born, I kind of decided I was going to marry his mother. And I was out for like a bachelor party evening, and that bachelor party evening consisted of smoking a shitload of meth and drinking a shitload of whiskey. We found a bar that would serve me pint glasses of whiskey. So I don't know how many of those I put down that night. But man, coming home that night, I was coming up my driveway, and I tripped on like a lift in the driveway, and I caught myself on the garage door. Anyway, it's one of these garage doors that has like 4 glass panels across the front. So I caught myself in that glass panel and severed the artery in my right arm.
Oh shit.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I was fucking basically dead,
Yeah.
I reached in, I watched the blood fucking spurt. I sobered right up. I mean, I can't tell you exactly how or what, but like my brain went dead sober. I reached in my pocket, grabbed my
adrenaline will kick in quick.
Dude. The shock, the adrenaline, I don't know what all it was. But I reached in my pocket, I grabbed my phone, I dialed 911, I told them exactly where I was at, exactly what had happened to me. And I made my way, I kind of covered my arm, and I made my way up to the front door, and I kind of kicked it in. I fell in the front door. My mother was sleeping on the couch in the living room that night because she was watching the kid while I was out bachelor partying, and the at the time future ex-wife was doing her little fucking thing, right? And so, man, that's I don't remember anything after that. For I do. There was a point in the hospital, man, where I was sitting above myself. And I remember it clear as day, that officer, and I'm going to call him out. His name is Officer Jared Gecky of the Longmont Police Department. That officer that came to rescue me, because I was so clear-headed to tell them what happened to me, he had a tourniquet ready. So the minute he got there, he threw that tourniquet on. And, they got me into an ambulance. This is a story I've heard. They got me into an ambulance. They put me on a blood pump in the ambulance. Um, and I remained on that blood pump for about 21 hours while I was in surgery.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I'm standing above myself, and this cop was like going through my shit, and he pulls out a fucking bubble, and he's like, whose is this? And I told him, and I don't know if it was me standing above, but I'm pretty sure I woke up and I told him, like, that's not mine. I've never seen that before. And he turned to one of the nurses and said, this guy's got fucking bigger problems than this, and chucked it into a trash can.
Nice.
And I mean, I don't know if that's, the view I had from above or what. But I had a full spiritual awakening during that time, man. During that 21 hours that I was basically dead on an operating table. And, I won't get terribly into that because it's a little bit involved, but, I will tell you that during that time, I met every God that has been, is, and is yet to be. So, that changed my whole outlook on my spirituality. As far as, I believe in Jesus, and I believe in Buddha, and I believe in every single one of them because I've met them.
Nice.
And it's a deep, deep story that, maybe, well, we might need a whole other podcast to get into that one.
We could do that.
But, like, man, I woke up in the hospital a few days later, angry, fucking didn't know what happened, was combative with the nurses, all of that. And, they finally came in, they took the catheter out so that I could go piss. Well, I'm standing in the bathroom pissing, and here are my pants, hanging up in the bathroom. So I'm like, I had some shit in that little fifth pocket. So immediately, man, I reach in that fifth pocket. There's a teener of fucking crystal meth, man. So what do? I dump some out in my hand and I throw it in my mouth, just like that.
Of course.
So that's how that addiction was, man. And while I was in the hospital, I had a friend come visit me and brought me some more. And I was able to go for a little walk with him, and we hit the bulb on the way, or hit the bubble while we were out walking. From that time I didn't drink. I stopped drinking because I thought drinking was the problem.
Yeah. So let me touch on that, right? Because I get this a lot, right? And I'm sure, like, in your profession, you hear this all the time, where, like, I'll have people come in, they'll be like, well, I was a really bad alcoholic, but, like, I quit doing alcohol, and, like, I quit drinking. And I'm like, you didn't. Like, you were doing meth. And anybody who has common sense that's done meth, every time I did meth, I wasn't drunk no more. So guess what I did? I quit drinking until I stopped doing meth. And then I was like, well, maybe I could drink once or twice because it's not that bad. I managed to quit, and that's how that denial continues to live. Um,
Yep.
So yeah, man, I get it. Like, we're able to say that real easily. Like, oh, I kicked the drinking problem. Forget that I substituted meth for it.
Yeah, that's the thing. And at that point, for me, it was alcohol was the problem, right? So
Yeah.
so I kicked it in, man. And, that was in '04. And so, I kicked it in, and I did a whole lot of meth, and I did a whole lot of fentanyl. I mean, a whole lot, so my mother was kind of my drug dealer when it came to that, because she was a chronic pain patient. And had a doctor that very, very, very heavily overprescribed her. I mean, to the point of, like, she was doing more fentanyl than any human being should ever fucking do, and
What year
still
was
have
this?
a closet full of the shit,
Yeah, this was what, in like '05, '06?
I mean, this was between probably '01 and '07.
Yeah, that's definitely like the height of the when the opiate problem really started. And I mean, if we're being honest, that's when, Big Pharma was really pushing. Man, everybody was over medicated. They just, everywhere you went, like, you would see people with the lollipops everywhere.
Yep.
Everywhere I went, I'd go to school and there would be everybody with the lollipops. I'd be like, what the hell? Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yep. And all they did, they put a little square on the end of the stick that had, like,
Yeah.
like they do now with the little THC warning labels. You break the square off and nobody fucking knows what's up.
Yeah.
It's silly. But yeah, man, and she had a closet full of this shit. She was my biggest drug dealer. And I was selling tons of the shit, on her behalf, but I only sold to, like a close group of my friends, my friends. I'm like, hey, buddy, let's, do some fucking sucking
Kill yourself.
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in between that, I'm snorting 80 fucking milligram oxys with my buddies, and I'm hey, here's 2 suckers, give me 2 oxys. All right, here's an oxy for you. Let's crush them up and do them. Cool. Here, give me one of those suckers back. All right, Um, but yeah, '07 man came, and dude, I just I don't know, man. I was having it out with my girl, and she just, I was like, I'm ready to be done. I was high as shit. I mean, I was high as shit, but I'm like, I'm ready to be done. And she's just like, I'm fucking not. So I went and scooped, we'd already separated, somewhat at that point, and she was staying at somebody else's house. So, I went and picked up my kid, cause, they couldn't deny me my kid or anything. And we jumped in my car and took off to Montana, to go kick it with a buddy of mine. And I got a call from her. I'm going to report you for kidnapping. Well, you can't kidnap your own kid. And the cops told her that, he can't kidnap his own kid. So I got to Montana. I was going to meet up with a friend of mine there. And the motherfucker, man, knew I was coming, but he didn't answer the phone.
Hmm.
So, I'm up there after a 10-hour drive, 2 hours. I'm trying to get a hold of this guy. I didn't know his exact address. We didn't have GPS like we do now.
Right.
He couldn't just send me a link or, any shit like that. So I said, fuck it, man. And I turned around and I came back to Colorado, and the unfortunate thing was, I had a ticket or no insurance or some shit like that. And so, that's kind of what she was able to use to get me hemmed up. Right. Um, and get the kid back and shit. And, it is what it is. So, we went through our divorce, and the day that our divorce finalized, she went back to her house. She had her kid, my stepson and my kid with her, and she attempted suicide. And she didn't do the best job of it, but I got a call from her mom saying, hey, this is what's going on. So, I went and picked up my kid, and, man, I've been a single dad ever since. And
Nice.
that was in like March of '08.
Is she still out running and gunning, or?
Man, she picked up a charge. She kind of tried to be, she worked her way back to like a 50-50 between like '08 and 2012. And, like it took that long to work back to like a 50-50. But, like in probably mid 11, she was in some abusive relationships and shit, and she decided she was going to move up to Wyoming with some guy. I took my kid up to visit with her for like 2 weeks during the summer of 2012. 2 days in, I get a call saying, you need to come get your kid, because I just can't do this. And, man, I was like, all right, on my way.
So that's interesting, right? Because I guess we haven't really talked enough about that on this channel, and maybe I should do some more episodes on this. But like, so when you're getting sober, and I have a few friends that they got sober and then became a single father, and we don't talk about like being the single father trying to figure out sobriety, right? How was that mentally? Like, how were you able to mentally do such a thing? Because you still have to take. How old is your kid at this time?
Let's see, '08, 5.
All right, so here you are trying to get newly sober, right? Which is a lot.
Newly clean on that one.
Yeah.
Not sober yet.
So we're getting newly clean. So this is a lot, right? So we're trying to do that, plus take care of a 5-year-old, plus still try to provide a living and all that stuff like that. Like how are you doing all this stuff?
Man, so here's the thing is, I had a kick-ass job. I mean, kick-ass. I'm a master carpenter by trade. And tile setter, and I've got some skills, right? And so
Nice.
I was working, I was able to get work with people that understood that shit, and people who drank and shit, and didn't wake up till 9 o'clock. Like we wouldn't start the workday till like 9.
Right.
And so I was able to, I was able to take my kid to their first day of kindergarten, right? And I'll tell you, one of their best friends is a kid that we met on that first day of kindergarten to this day, and my kid's 21 now. But I was able to take my kid to that first day of kindergarten, and I took my kid to school every single day until they were like well into middle school.
Oh.
Because that was just one of those routines that we had that I needed, right? And that went all the way till after I sobered up. But navigating that, man, let me tell you, it wasn't easy. Because it just wasn't easy.
So at this point, you're just clean, right? You're not clean and sober.
No, dude, I was drinking copious amounts of alcohol. And still raising my kid, doing my best, and not man, me and that kid are like, we're still tight, we're still best friends. So like I wasn't like verbally or mentally abusive. There was like one time that really stuck with me where right before I sobered up, but I'll get to that here pretty quick. But man, it wasn't easy. There was a lot of shit involved there. And really, it took a lot of perseverance and a lot of, fucking leaning on other people. And I didn't have a lot of people. But, my ex-wife's cousin, was super cool. And, like she'd pick him up from school, on days that I was going to be running late. I had a decent enough job where, I could go to work at, we got to where we'd start working around 8, figured out how to really, stop drinking, 12 hours before we had to be at work so that we could maybe think about kind of being sober.
Yeah.
There were plenty of days, plenty of times, dude, my kid at 8 years old fucking drove me to the liquor store one day, through a drive-up liquor store, sitting on my lap. I'm like, all right, I got the pedals, you got the wheel, right? You know where we're going. And the liquor store fucking served me, dude, I mean, like,
of course.
yeah. So, so that my kid was kind of raised in that for a little while. And, ultimately, my culmination, and I started coaching one of their baseball teams when they're like 10 years old. And I was still doing a little bit of drinking. No, I was sober. I was sober when I started coaching, actually. That's how I got the name coach. But yeah, so, man, the culmination for me though was, because I was just drinking, and I ended up burning a fucking house down in 2012, like mid March or so of 2012, and copped a few arson charges, arson 1, 2, 3, criminal mischief, some other shit, because a drunken night and a little bit of there was some anger involved, and there was some potential for maybe some insurance payouts for the guy that I was working with. Kind of a combination of some things. And I think one of us might have low bandwidth. But
Sorry, it balances out on this program.
Right on. But that was my culmination. From March of 2012 till January of 2013, man, I drank heavy. I mean, probably more than I ever did. Because there was guilt, there was shame, there was all these things. But I still wasn't sober. My sobriety date is my sentencing date. I went to my sentencing, and right when I walked in, my attorney was like, "Fuck, dude," because here's the kind of shitty fucking person I was. I didn't have plans for my kid going into this sentencing. And I was looking at like 8 years in DOC, potentially. And my attorney was like, you could do 8 years or you could get some probation. I don't fucking know. And so, I went into my sentencing, and my attorney's like, dude, I cannot believe how fucking drunk you are right now. I can't believe how badly you smell of alcohol. You're going to stand behind me. The only thing you're going to say is, yes, Your Honor, and thank you, Your Honor, no matter what they say. And I was like, not a problem. So, we got through my sentencing. The judge, the DA, I must have done something to, I stopped drinking. I stopped smoking pot. I was smoking, pot for, pretty heavily through that time too. But I stopped drinking, stopped smoking pot for the pre-sentence investigation, all clean UAs, all of that good shit. So, I fooled everybody, I think, at that point. Maybe the judge saw something in me I didn't see in myself, but, he decided he was going to sentence me to 4 years of intense fucking probation and, restitution and fines and, amazing amounts of fucking community service. Which, it's what I needed, man. When I came out of that courtroom, my attorney had me, go down to the sheriff's office so she could, breathalyze me so she could see if I could even sign my paperwork and, go to the probation office to sign up. I didn't drive myself to court that day. I had a driver. But I blew a fucking 043. In the sheriff's office 12 hours after I stopped drinking.
Oh, wow.
And
so you're really getting it in.
Dude. Yeah, because I had no idea what was going to happen. I thought I was going to prison, man. And my plan was to call my mom and be like, hey, you got to pick the kid up from school. And by the way, that's your kid for the next 8 years, right? But, I got lucky, man. I got to walk out of the courthouse and, I had a probation officer that, was ready to hold me accountable. And, I got into some service work, community service. I went to Habitat for Humanity and I built houses, for Habitat for Humanity. And when that was done, I was like, fuck, dude, like, I got to find some other way to be of service. So I started coaching a baseball team. And, did that for a couple years. So, here I am, 2013, I'm coaching a baseball team. A full-time fucking carpenter, full-time single dad. And, I got to a point where I'm like, I want to be of service, but I'm just one person and I can't come up with the ideas and stuff for the amount of service that I wanted to do. Yeah. I'd made it through 2 years of probation. And they took me off UAs and all of that shit.
During this time, did you find like AA or any of that stuff didn't find any of this stuff yet?
Nope. I got sober on my own, man. I climbed into, some AA literatures here and there. And, I worked myself through my first set of 12 steps off of, shit I found on the internet, worksheets and workbooks and things like that off the internet. And it was July of 2015, July 2nd, so tomorrow of 2015, my mother passed away from complications from fucking, pharmaceutical drugs and shit. And it was about 6 months after that I found Sober Souls Motorcycle Club, man. That was through one of my most amazing and best brothers, Big Mike, who, man, he answered
Everybody has a Big Mike. I just want to point out that, I got a Big Mike friend. Everybody has a friend named Big Mike somewhere. Shout out to Big Mike.
You gotta fucking have a fucking Big Mike up in the crew, huh?
Yeah. If you don't have a Big Mike, I question your authenticity.
Yeah. So I'm real now. All the way up this last 42 minutes, I'm a fake ass motherfucker. But now,
yeah, but you got a Big Mike, so we're good now.
Yeah. So so he answered a Facebook post. There was a 10-year-old kid here in Longmont, Colorado, that his mom posted that she was looking for someone to escort her kid to school because he just attempted suicide for the 3rd time because he was being bullied at school. And Big Mike answered that ad. And he said, "My name is Big Mike with Sober Souls. I'm with Sober Souls Motorcycle Club, and I would be happy to escort your son every day." So I answered back and I said, "I'd be happy to join you." And he hit me in a private message and said, "Are you sober?" I said, "I am." And he said, "Meet me at this place at this time." So I met him at this place at this time. It was November 27th of 2015, which was a sobriety birthday of my brother Chainsaw. So it was a sobriety meeting, his sober birthday meeting, an AA meeting that he started at a treatment center. And, I got to meet, a dozen or so sober souls there, 18 maybe. And I got to meet their Denver chapter, and, I went through the meeting and I shared during the meeting. One of my it was probably like my fifth AA meeting that I'd been to at all, right? And something just compelled me to, I have to share during this meeting. So I shared. And after that meeting, he was like, "So you want to come ride with us?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, I do." Abso-fucking-lutely. So, they invited me to the next church to state my intentions. And I'll tell you, man, it was fucking 13 degrees out that day. And, I rode my motorcycle, to that church. And when I got there, it was the only motorcycle in the parking lot because, all these guys are smart enough not to do dumb shit like that. But, I was like, I got to make an impression on these guys, right? Because I knew this is what I want. And, and I stood up December 4th of 2015, man. I stated my intentions. It wasn't long after that they hung flags on me, asked me to officially hang around, and then prospecting. So I'm prospecting for a fucking motorcycle club. I'm working a full-time job. I'm coaching at that time, a travel fucking baseball team, and, doing all the things. Well, these guys are the service work I was looking for.
Yeah.
Cause
And
that's what,
you guys, and I will say, man, that was the one thing. Like when I reached out to you guys, I came across you once on TikTok of all, like just a random video of you guys riding a bike, and I saw the name. I was like, who the hell is the Sober Souls? Like, what the hell is this stuff? And then I started looking. I was like, wow, like you guys really do some work, man. Like you guys really do service work to a whole nother level. You know what I mean? And like, I'm very impressed with it. I know that.
yeah,
'Cause you
man.
don't
And,
see that
and
too often.
it wasn't necessarily like it is now when I joined the club. Um, you know, the club was a lot smaller at that point. Only had a few chapters. We've got many more chapters now. We've increased that service work from, kind of, whatever we can in between things, feeding the homeless like twice a year. We do like a feed the homeless, put together hygiene packs, all of that shit. And, at one point, man, I saw this commercial on TV, and it was for Bombas socks. And they said,
Yeah.
we, we donate one pair for every pair we sell. And, I looked them up online and I was like, where do they donate to? Oh, well, they have a giving partner, thing. And I mean, they just kind of started up. And so, I signed Sober Souls up to be a fucking giving partner with Bombas. And, that was in like 2017. My brother, Big Mike, he passed away, man, July 2nd, 2017. So exactly 2 years after my mother on the same day, from a motorcycle accident that he got into on June 25th of 15. So, that solidified for me, that, I was where I needed to be, and, and someone needed to fill those shoes. Cause that man was the dude that, he rode his motorcycle to fucking 3 AA meetings a day. He was all about the service work and shit. Um, so that was it. That solidified it for me. I was like, yeah, the rest of my life now is going to be devoted to, walking in that man's shoes. And so, I got us hooked up with Bombas, man. And, since like 2017, man, they're giving us 10,000 pairs of fucking socks a year. We've
That's
given
awesome.
away, by my count, a little over like $1.2 million worth of socks.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and what we do is we use that for outreach, man. We donate to other organizations, other nonprofit organizations, things like that. because, Bombas is super cool and allows us to do that, right? So, we use that for outreach. That's the thing that we get to draw people in. Hey, you want some socks? Who doesn't, right? Summertime, you need socks because you're sweating those things out. Wintertime, you need socks because it's fucking cold out here in Denver, Colorado. So, it's a year-round way that we get to bring people in, and other organizations that we work with get to bring people in and then start to provide services. I use it in the recovery services I provide often. And I donate them to some of the sober livings that, are nonprofit sober livings or, things like that so that, their guys that are coming in, have that shit. I donate to treatment centers. I say I should say we, Sober Souls MC. We donate those to treatment centers. We donate them to, anybody that can use them, man. So, 10,000 pair a year. And that was one of the things.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's what our chapters use to draw people in to, when they're doing their outreach events and things like that, and they're helping. So, that one small act of just, filling out an application and actually being accepted, right, was like a huge catalyst for the service work that we get to do as a club now. And I don't take, credit for, the service work and the shit that we do. I don't take any credit for that, because at the end of the day, we could have lost that giving partnership in the first year by simply, not being active and not using the socks the way they were intended. But, the brothers jumped in and they're like, fuck yeah. Let's use this shit as a tool to help others. And so, now all of our chapters get, 1,000 fucking pairs of socks a year, and they use that to help people out and to draw people in.
You guys also do a bunch of stuff though, other than that, right? Like you guys got meetings going that you guys operate. Like you guys are killing it.
Yeah, man. I'll tell you that that meeting that my brother Chainsaw started in that treatment center. We've had to move a couple of times because we've outgrown it. And that meeting averages probably about 140 people every single Tuesday now. We do that. It started in like a coat closet with just a few people. My brother Cadillac, my brother Chainsaw, a brother from another club, the Trash Man, our brother Jock, who's a life member of our club, a charter member, who's still active 34 years later, man. Chainsaw started that meeting and they helped kind of be the glue of that, when it first started. And now it's 140 people on average. We have a big church that lets us come in, a place called Free Spiritual Community here in Denver. And we have a Monday night meeting in Loveland, Colorado. That Tuesday night meeting, we have 2 Wednesday night meetings. These are all put on by different chapters. And we have a Thursday night meeting in the Springs and a Friday night meeting in Parker, Colorado. So, we're out here, we're walking the walk, man.
Yeah, you are.
Not just talking the talk. We're bringing meetings to people. We're bringing services to people. We're bringing recovery to people. And, and our members, like we get guys that are fucking fresh green that, have no time. And we have minimums, you got to be sober for a minimum amount of time before, you can prospect with us. Once you start prospecting, you got to hang around for a long time, before you can start prospecting. And then, that prospect period is not short. It's probably a 2-year, if you're coming to us fresh, it's a minimum a 2-year process before you could even patch with us. If you're coming to us with some sobriety, it's like a minimum like 18 months, but it's generally about 2 years, before you could even patch with us. Like you got to have some recovery under your fucking belt. You got to be working a program. You can't just be, a dry drunk fucking asshole. You know,
What happens if what happens if somebody relapses?
man. So some of that's internal, some of that's in our bylaws. Some things I can't share. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it all depends how that relapse works, how they come to us, right? If we got to fucking find out, you know, there may or may not be, obviously we're gonna stand by you and help you get to treatment or whatever the case is, but there may or may not be a path back to the club for you. If you come to us and you let us know, hey man, this happened to me, and whatever, your opportunity to potentially come back to the club increases. But we don't really have that issue. Um, like we had one probate fuck around one time, and that didn't end up well. He wasn't able to come back to the club because of how we had to find out. Um, and we've had, in my time, I'm coming up on nearly a decade since I started, hanging around the club. In my time, it just hasn't been an issue. Um, you know,
That's even
we
better. Like that. That's even better because like on our logo, like I've added the 2% on our logo because they always talk about like the 2%. So like obviously you guys are beating that statistic as well too. Like you guys are like shattering all stereotypes over there. You know,
yeah,
big
I
mean
mean,
bikers.
yeah, for me, it's one of those things I needed. It's a
Yeah,
whole different level of accountability,
yeah.
and especially working, like I've worked my way up through this club, man. I was a state rep. I was an officer in my chapter, and then I became a state rep, and then I became a national ambassador, and now I'm a national sergeant at arms. So the level of accountability for me is, I mean, beyond
Through the roof.
comparison. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, through the roof. Like I can't fuck up.
Right.
Because I've got many, 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 many brothers that hold me accountable, and we hold each other accountable.
Well, that's awesome though. Like I talk about that a lot where like people always talk about where I always talk about not only the accountability but the aspect of the more people that you have involved with you, the more accountability you have. But not only that, it's that internal feeling. Like I know like I feel it on a daily basis, right? Because like not only do I do this, I do a lot of shit in our community. I do a lot of shit all over the place that I'm like, man, there, even in my darkest moments in recovery, I've had those moments where I'm like, even if I was to go pick up, I'm gonna let down so many people, and for me, I can't have another plan because like I have to do this because I don't have another shot at recovery in me because of that, right? So because of that accountability, I always look at it like I know I could go on a run, but I'm not coming back into recovery, so I'm gonna die or go to the feds because like I don't have it in me to come back, and I think that level of accountability is what helps hold people like us together, um, at least on my aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Just the I wouldn't have anywhere to come back to. I mean, I'm so
Right.
tied in the recovery.
Right.
I'm so tied into the recovery community through the souls, foundations I've worked with, just through all of the meetings I've been to. I mean, I can't even tell you how big that circle is, how big that network is. I work in recovery too. Right now I'm sitting in a sober living house that I, provide. I'm building a PHP program for this place, from scratch. And
You're gonna so you're gonna do a program where I can send people from PA to you?
I mean, fuck it, dude. Why not? Yeah,
Let's do
yeah,
it.
man.
Let's do it. I'll
Fuck it.
send some
Why
of my
not?
clients to you.
Yeah, I'll jump on a plane and come get them.
Yeah,
I'll make
we can
sure they
work
don't
something.
drink on that motherfucker too. I'll come kick in a fucking trap house door and grab them and put them on a fucking plane if that's what we got to do.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, we get a lot
I'm
of
not.
people. So we get a lot of people that come to our rehab that they're stuck, right? And they don't obviously. I mean, obviously we don't have housing. So it's like, okay, well now we're homeless. Now we're in inpatient rehab. where am I going to send you after here? And like, we have the 3/4 houses, and I have a friend that has 3/4 houses that I utilize, but it's so hard to find them all over the place because I'm very picky of where I send people to. Because I'm like, I don't want to just send you somewhere that turns out to be another trap house, because, you know, a lot of people do take advantage of the addict and alcoholic too. So.
Yep, exactly. So out here, I think we got a little bit different level of I mean, there's some funding that has come our way. Our state Medicaid pays for recovery coaching for peer services that they weren't
Nice.
doing that prior to like 2020. The pandemic and shit, and and we have an increased amount of telehealth, thanks to the pandemic, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
so we get to help people through telehealth.
Oh,
Um,
that's
you
awesome.
know, the program I'm working with, um, you know, it's basically their rent is funded by initially by some of the programming that they're doing. So we're like, this house is like a step down from treatment, right? You go to treatment, you go to PHP, and some PHP out here, the housing, they provide housing in like a sober living off site. We're doing the PHP on site. Um, and then, drop down to IOP, and then, peer coaching, generally just peer coaching. And then you get to be on your own and you get to live, hopefully a life of long-term recovery. And, like if you're doing these things kind of right, like, you do like a minimum 30-day program in the treatment center, and then you drop down to, like a PHP level, and you spend, a few months in that PHP level. And then you drop down to an IOP, you spend a few months in that IOP, then you do a couple months of recovery coaching. You've got a year under your belt.
Yeah, I mean, if you hit the whole program, and it's same way in PA. Like, this is what I tell the clients all the time. Like, man, if you just follow this whole program, you're gonna walk out of here with at least 18 months clean, like clean and sober. Like, you can do this. Like, it's you'll have 18 months under your belt, and then from there, now you're on to your, like, the decision is yours after that. You know.
Yep. So, man, and there's a lot of revolving door shit going on. I mean, it's like any recovery based anything. It's a revolving door, and it changes from winter to summer and shit, right? Like the summertime, people drop off. There aren't as many people that go into the treatment centers because it's a lot easier to live in a fucking tent or live under the fucking bridge when it's 80, 90 degrees out than it is when it's fucking -5, right?
Same way
Um,
in PA. It
yeah,
gets cold
I
over
mean,
here. There, wintertime we're packed, and then
yeah,
summertime, like right now, like we got so many beds at rehab. Like, that's what you
yeah,
get.
man. Yep. So, so we're, the people I serve, man, it's still a revolving door, but I'm here to serve people who want this thing.
Yeah.
And when you get, 12 and a half years sober, 17 clean, you just kind of see it in their eyes, man. Like when you meet them, do you want this thing or not? Like you don't even have to ask them. You can see that level of desperation. You can hear it in their talk that they want to commit to this thing. And those are the people that I really, I love to work with. But, I also understand that, it's got to start in that, that street outreach, that unhoused, that homeless outreach. You know, man, I've got clients that, I do some volunteer work at a church in Arvada, Colorado on Friday mornings, man. And, I go sit there, I hang out, I talk recovery with some people. It might take 2 or 3 months of, talking to somebody before they go, I think I'm ready. Right. I got a guy that, just, well, I got two guys actually that just, came out of treatment. They're into sober living. They reach out to me. They're like, dude, like, thanks for sticking in there with me and like bringing me to this level where I knew I needed to be. I just didn't know how to get there. And I took 3 months of working with them, in an outreach once a week, outreaching them and letting them know, like, hey man, I go sit on the floor with them, in this day shelter, and and just talk to them, right? and let them know that, like, you're a fucking human and you're worthy. You know, you're worthy of more than this fucking shit, right?
It
And,
makes the world of difference when you just sit down and talk.
yeah, man. Yeah. And and then, you get them treatment and then sober living, and they call you up and they're like, hey, man, you're like, I'm surviving and I'm thriving, and I'm working, and, I'm becoming a productive member of society again. And, it feels good and it feels great. And you're like, fuck yeah, dude. That's a win right there. So that's the level of support I look to provide, from the street to, the fucking high towers, if that's what we can do.
Absolutely. All right. So we got about 53 in. So how can people find you that are looking
Um,
for help, especially those that are listening that are in your area? How can they find
yeah.
you?
Well, so I'm a little difficult to find, purposely, but Sober Souls, MC is sobersoulsmc.com. Um, we Anybody can send a message. I don't care what state you're in, right? You can send us a message on www.sobersoulsmc.com. I can be reached at Clayton at nojokecoaching.org. That's the email that I tend to answer more often, and I will refrain from putting my phone number on here. But those are the two best, easiest ways to get a hold of either Sober Souls MC or me through Sober Souls MC, or me directly.
I'll put the links in the description. So
Awesome. And
I'll
then
link your guys' Facebook too if you guys don't mind.
and there you go. We're on Facebook. We don't have like a TikTok channel, but a lot of our members do. So and they tend to have some kind of Sober Souls or SSMC tag on their name. So, TikTok, just look up Sober Souls MC. You'll find us. You'll see what we do, what we're about. We ride the miles. We put in the recovery efforts. We bring meetings to people. We do all the fucking things. And then I do those. I carry all those things into, all of my affairs, right? So.
I'm gonna get my next thing. I'm gonna buy a bike. I'm gonna ride out there and hang out with you guys for a while. We're gonna do an
Dude,
episode.
awesome.
I'm gonna bring the camera and we're gonna put it out. And we're gonna just do everybody there.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. And
Yeah.
I'm sure a few of us would be happy to jump on our bikes and ride out to PA and come see you too. So maybe we could turn it into a couple episodes or something.
Yeah.
Because I definitely want to I want to come out there, man, and I want to see if there's motherfuckers out there that I can help too. And so yep. Anywhere we can be of service, man.
Nice.
And hey, we don't have a chapter in Pennsylvania yet, so.
Yeah. Well, come on over.
Yeah.
we're right by in the Pittsburgh area, so.
Sweet. Sounds like a good place to come talk to some people about starting a chapter one of these days, maybe.
Amen to that. All right, man, we're going to wrap this up. So, listen, I greatly appreciate you guys for listening to us for about 57 minutes. You could have been anywhere in the world today, but you sat here and chose to be here with us, and I greatly appreciate that. Hopefully you heard what you needed to hear to help you out today. If you did not, everybody and their brother has a podcast, so go find another one. I don't care how you get help as long as you get it. That's all that matters. Don't pick up the phone and call the dope man today. Instead, pick up the phone and call somebody to help. You know all of our contact information, so if need be, you can always message me, message anybody you need to. I don't care. We'll get you the help you need in any way, shape, or form. Resources all across the nation, man, so that's what this is about. So we appreciate you guys for stopping through, and you guys have a good night. Thanks for listening.